All right, so welcome to your restorative session today. We're going to start with warming up the legs. We're going to be working quite a bit with leg circulation and kind of the leg form of how it associates with our upper body as well. So we're going to start with the legs extended forward when you're sitting on top of your bolster, and take a belt, unbuckle so you got the full belt length. And as you look to your legs, create a little bit of a bend. So when you prop yourself up on your seat, you've got a prop under your rear. That's going to start the leg flush to move down. So what I want you to do is to take that left leg and you're going to cross it over the right leg. So the form of the leg, you can kind of see an aerial view of it, but you're still sitting is like so. So it's crossing, okay? Now, as far as the knees go, let's say you're here and you feel this right knee is pressing down. You could put a sandbag under it or even one of your blankets. If it seems like that's just too much hyperextension, I would just go right ahead with that. But you'll take a belt under your right foot. So you have to kind of toss it forward to get the foot. And as the leg and the calf gets a powerful presence of circulation, you're going to pull onto that belt with your arm kind of cycle of movement. So you bend through the elbows, you proceed to go forward, but you want to maintain that intensity with the belt under the foot. So I want you to really get a good pull, and the belt is under the ball of the foot. I like having the blanket under my leg. It's not something I would regularly add, but since it seems like it's supportive, I'll keep it. But see if you can take a minimal amount of leaning forward, but a maximum amount of pulling at the ball of the foot. So that real deep flexion, it stimulates the calf. I'm trying to get us to kind of work in preparation for a nice full practice where we get the legs properly warmed up. So when you feel that feature of leaning forwards, okay, it's not very much tilting, is it, on the upper scale of the body to the brain. You're just tilting a bit. Okay, now keep that foot in that flex zone. So you're pulling with the hands, minimal shoulder disruption here. So it's like your biceps are working your arms. Some of you might feel your upper back a bit, but when you come back to what you feel is upright, then you'll switch the foot that's in the belt, real simple. You'll take that crossing with the other leg. So the key with this, the right leg, is I just step it over the left leg, and then I try to work with that right leg so that it's actually pushing a little bit onto my left leg, so it increases that isolation of the calf, right? So I pull, I tilt, I can walk the hands farther down the belt. That is very helpful. But if it's kind of a searing stretch, you might minimize that searing sensation by sliding the belt a little bit lower on the foot. Still feels pretty intense through the calf. And as you pull, you can monitor that pressure. Breathe deeply. Try to let that cycle of breath be kind of an evolving presence in your practice. At times it lulls you, but you might focus, especially when it's a deep stretch, like you're kind of hydrating yourself. You could hydrate at the same time, I suppose, during practice. Okay, now as you're pulling, get a feel here for that reach of the waist forward. See if you can tilt, but as cautious as you can with no rounding of the back, no hunching over. Use the arms as a selection, really pulling through. Okay, now when you slide back, what we'll do is if you got the blanket underneath, just take that, place it back behind your bolster. And let's take this. So let me get this together here. So my right leg's going to pull in, so that foot parks under my left thigh. Okay, so it's under my left thigh, and yes, this left leg will go up. So without any sand, see if you can do this without something grounding your leg. You'll lift up the left leg, It's simple, and you'll walk your hands towards the foot and maintain that same reaction in the footing, but it's probably distributing in the upper leg. You know, it's a little bit higher through the leg that you're stretching. And if it tilts forward and you feel like it's tightening your back, then bend your knee, left knee, and pull the leg a little closer to you. So you're muscling into a little bit. Moments of muscling. Okay, feel if that foot can lift, like you're visualizing it moving up towards the ceiling. See what happens with that idea. And then bend through the leg just so that you can place the foot onto the other side of the right leg. They said we're pretzeling our legs a bit today. Cross that left foot to the other side of the right knee, belt goes down. And then turn to your left and take a twist that's quite mindful. So you hold on to the left knee for a few moments. And then you feel the compartment of the waist turning to the left. And then hook that right elbow to that left leg and bring the left hand back so that you can rotate. And feel when the spine is shifting towards the right for you to turn left, right? So you can feel that left side of the spine shifting over. And collective focus on breath. So the belly motions with the breath. You feel where it's ultra simple here. Now, as you come out, you'll take Baddha Konasana. So that means soles of the feet together, right? Knees pointing out. See if you can maintain this for a few moments where the knees are out. There's nothing under the legs in this one. No Baddha Konasanas today will have blocks under them. If you need to use them, but see if you can work on just this upright pattern for the waistband, especially lower abdomen, without having to total pull the belly, draw it back. See if you can work with interlacing your fingers, push the hands forward, and then feel if the legs want to butterfly a bit. See if you can let just the soles of the feet kind of rest a little. So no longer are the soles pushing, they're probably slightly tilting open at the big toe side. And then elevate the arms. So as they lift, the ribs motion. Breathe. Bring your arms back forward. Let the hands fall to the knees. And then slide that left foot in so it's under the right thigh. And get your belt under the right foot. And lift up the leg. Heron pose. So we have that experience of lift. I want you to feel where the elbows are kind of suctioning inwards. So we're really warming up the threads of the extremities today before we get into kind of the restorative balance. Okay, so feeling where that leg is up, maybe you work with the belt to the ball of the foot, maybe you scoot it down towards the heel. I really like a little higher on the foot. Creates that kind of web of the calf. And you know, our calf, one side might feel like you can feel the web at the back of it trying to span open. One side might just feel like your hamstring is stretching. And bend your knee. Okay, take the belt away. Actually place it so it's kind of towards the back side of your mat and cross the right foot over the left leg. And then as you properly feel the sitting bones and the direction of turning to the right, right hand back to the blankets, left arm to the right leg, and then rotate. And feel in the spine, just that axis of rotation, rotational axis on the spine, how the abdomen kind of has this peculiar rotation too. So you want to work on that intra-abdominal pressure so you're not trying to tighten the belly. You want to let the abdomen be relaxed when you twist so you can strengthen the diaphragm. So twists are useful for diaphragmatic strength. Okay, and lengthening through the spine. Take a deep breath, inhale, filling the lungs. And on that exhalation, you'll slide that left arm just out from the crossing and then come back forward. And let's take a block, uncross the legs, and then place the block right next to the bolster so it's directly in front. You can stay sitting, but your block is flat in front of your bolster. And you'll slide forward and sit on the very tippy edge of that block and lower onto your back. Okay, you want to be aware we're going to be using wall space towards the end of the session, but if you're stepped against one, be aware that you want to not be pushing too far into the wall if it's there, so you have opportunity to go further. And then as you take a sandbag, as the legs have had a little bit of refreshing circulation to begin, feel the front zone of the leg. Put the sand on the top and see if you can really pull it across. And I know that the feet might separate and the top of the legs go closer in, but get a feel of that separating quality of your feet. They have a direction of toes up, but eventually they may turn out. So when your ribs turn out and your arms flow open, you be the decider if you want this many blankets. Okay, so I'm going to opt for 1 because I want more rib lift. So if you decide that the 2 is better for your neck and it feels comfortable, go with 2. And then take a belt and experience the motion of the arms moving out wide. The ribs reflect that direction, but that takes some time. So the feet can relax. The shoulders might it might be a little dicier in the shoulders, how you complement them in this shape. You might have to roll them back and down. You might reserve this time to be without the belt and have your arms flowing out onto the ground. So you decide on the arm positioning, belt or no belt. But I've shown you the direction of the belt. You can grasp a hold and pull. And that simply brings a little higher dosage of circulation and flow to the chest, but it is a muscling pattern. So you might eventually go to let go of your belt after half a minute or so. And then see what naturally can circulate in the front zone of the upper body. Because I think sometimes when we think of upper body work in physical education, like our vision might go to the back muscles or the shoulders. It seems to be left out with working like in yoga, movement of the chest, spanning. There's a lot of twists and lots of arm pulling, pushing, but our work here in the moment is spanning open the chest. Feel the abdomen move comfortably with each breath. And let your eyes close. Yeah, truly let your feet relax. So if you're forcing them to be pointed up, just see if you can let it go, even if they're turned out. Okay, now maintain this range in the upper rib level, right, where you feel the ribs kind of intersect that span. And as you slide your feet in, slide any sand away, and take Baddha Konasana, Supta Baddha, so the feet together, the knees out. And it's a little different when you sit upright. The feet tend to kind of suction together a little easier here than when you're sitting up, because the inside line of the feet tends to kind of move outwards. The big toes don't touch as easily. So when you notice this coordination for the leg muscles, the stretch through the inner thighs, and the back has to kind of pull itself internally, to strengthen through the vertebrae. So try to feel the feet where they're pushing in, not force, don't make it like it's consciously just uncomfortable, but feel that there's direction with them pushing in. Okay, and the ribs go opposite, they go out. All right, so if the knees have to kind of rebound a little bit, moving up because it's sensitive, then you can slide your feet a little farther down, or you could come out of the pose and let the knees point up, where we're all going to end up. Okay, feel where the knees are trying to motion out. Does one inner thigh have an easier time than the other? It's probably a knee issue sometimes with that. It might even be the knee that has more challenge. That inner thigh might be more tense, it might not be. Okay, and as the knees flow back up towards the ceiling, or they flow back up, they're getting higher towards the ceiling in a moment. We're going to push the bolster. Let's see how we ought to do this. If you have 2 blankets under your head, push one back so you're down to 1. First things first here. And then you can just leave your block down there. Scoot your toes in so you're on more of the roots of the toes, heels are up. And then lift your hips and slide your bolster, just a few inches. It's going to go under the back, the high back of the pelvis. So it's pretty high up. It's when you lift up your feet, it feels like if you put the feet back down, heels up, that you're right on the edge of that bolster with your seat. So it's okay if you're on the edge. If it's too much back strength work, then you just push the bolster a tiny bit farther down. Good? Okay. Now, with the right leg moving in, let's hold the back of it and let the left leg reach down, but I want you to keep the foot off the ground. So I don't think that block's going to help you that much because it's on one side or the other, but it might come into play. And alternate, left leg in, right leg stretches straight forward from your hip joint, so it still flows down. And it hovers, so I want your foot to hover above the ground. If it touches, it just reminds you to come back up. So alternate at your own pace. Okay, now if you're including a breath focus, go with that. Maybe you go inhale, knee in, but it's going to be simple experiencing the leg movement versus total breath focus. Okay. Now, next time you come back to that right leg, I want you to bring it in, left foot down, bottom of the foot down, knee points up, and then get your belt and we'll place it under that right foot. And I want you to kind of notice where your buckle is today for this one. So I suppose the block at the base below your bolster might be in the way. So if you can kind of push it over to the side, maybe that's a better idea in this moment. Things come up as we go. Buckle up. Okay, get that belt loop so it's substantial width. So you have a really big loop. I like to have my belt to hang so I can tighten it up or loosen it on my dominant arm side. So that is something that you might, think about where the belt is connected, that you have a little straggler piece, right? You want to be able to tighten it or loosen it. So as the left leg flows down, get a sandbag. We're going to get sandy here in this sequence, this piece. And see if you can get that sandbag to kind of aim towards the knee. If it's difficult, just let it kind of go a little bit sideways, it's fine. But as you get the belt loop behind your head to the occiput, feel if your head can kind of lean back a little. And you might have to fuss with the sandbag. If it feels like it's not really stable and it's intolerable, then I would just isolate that sandbag at the top of the leg so there's no rocking of it. Okay, because the belt's going to be a little tippy anyway. That's another piece that has change. So I try to work with the foot straight up, right? It might look like it's going a little forward, but similar to how we started, the ball of the foot is pushing into the belt. Or is the head pulling the belt back? Arms spread out. Eyes, if possible, can relax. So you can feel kind of the sensation of eyes motioning back into the brain. And feel the breath when it arrives internally, abdominally, expanding. If your left foot really has to turn out excessively, just get a feel of the heel and what goes up from the heel, the footing. See if you can establish that. You can always put your foot a little bit out to the left side. Sometimes that will create support. You might feel more strength work in your hip joint, but that's okay. You'd rather work on stabilizing so that, if we turn our foot out a lot, it tends to narrow the SI joint. So it tends to tighten in the back, is what happens with the turn out of the foot, pretty basic. So feel when you push into either direction, your head back or your foot up. Find a happy stretch in between those two worlds. Give ourselves a few more moments here. Circulation, indeed. Breathing slow. Exhaling completely. Okay, now simple change sides. So slide the sand to your belly, just across, horizontal. And it's low, but as I put my hands to the back of my head so it covers that belt, then I lift up the left foot, and as I cross and exchange my foot that's up in the belt, the right leg moves down. Maybe kind of skim the sensation of feeling. The foot is on the ground. We're not trying to entertain hovering the foot. But if you shake it out a little bit, you get a feel of where the tension resides in a leg. Yeah, the legs are definitely a big piece today. So when we move the sand down to the right leg, at least in this part, we slide that, and it might be different on your second leg, how the sand balances. I mean, so many different reasons why, maybe the second side, you're used to it, you have a different play in the hips, even though the hips don't seem to do much, right? They're just plain hips in this shape. But there's the arrival of the weight of your head in the belt, and you have to be careful not to push your chin really far down to your chest. It's not a bad thing. Some schools of thought would be to encourage that for the thyroid, the circulation into that upper endocrine space. But I'm working on a postural viewpoint just to safely support our neck. So there's nothing wrong with feeling your head supported by the belt. arms open. You can go into cactus arms. I find just the arms out is easiest for my shoulders and my back. And then as you entertain the motion of where should the right foot be, should I put it a little bit out? Should I try to flex it? Just feel where you can find a reasonable expectation for your foot. Your left foot has no problems, right? It's got a belt surrounding it. So it's all good with posture. So you're feeling the weight of your head back. If you need to tighten your belt or loosen it, do so. Accommodate your needs. And breathe. It's a practice. Just being in your body. That's it, right? No additional things to filter through your brain, but breathing. What a relief. You know, when you feel the stimulation in the calf, let's bring the hands to the back of our head. Kind of feel where the support is. If your chin's moving down, try to support so your head can lean back a bit. Okay. Then take one hand down to that sand and slide it away. And then from here, we'll bring both feet up into the belt, but I would slide your belt off your head and push your feet out and hold the belt. So that means that they may not go out as far. That's kind of what the belt's going to have you hesitate on pushing farther. So first get a feel of the legs lifted. I know you've had a few moments of that already. And then maximize that by letting go of the belt. And if this is too much leg circulation, you can tighten the belt down, or you can go back to bending and holding the belt. That's fine. So I'm going to make my belt a little smaller of a loop, so I can kind of cast the reach of the feet. It's a foot casting. And the side of the knees, this is such a good one for our knees, just the circulation for the knees to get the legs in this reverse flow. And, you know, if my legs are straight up, like with the sand on the feet, it's good too, but this is especially good because that adductor line has stretch, this inner vein in the knees, which, you know, for some of us, this might be a place, the inside of the knee, where it can degenerate a little bit. So flow through that leg, give it another 30 to 45 seconds, so about 5 to 6 breaths. And you might have your hands just on the side of the abdomen. They may be out to the side or back overhead. Determine the length of your breath. So the inhale is 4 to 5 counts. Exhaling fully, letting go. Great, now bend through your legs. And then as you reach up to the belt, I want you to slide the feet together. And let's see, where we're going is we'll take the belt off of our feet, and we're going to move from the leg span into the hips. So what you'll do is take a sandbag and you'll move a block to the side of your bolster. I would have a block on each side. I'm kind of prepared that way. So I've got a block, and it could be mid-height, it could be flat. You won't know until you try how high you need it, I think. You know, the mid-height will make it a little easier, but you might be just fine with it low. So I would put it like if you're holding your arms out, holding your blocks in your fingers, kind of grabbing them, you want to feel like your muscles are engaged in your arm to do that. So keep it a little distant from your bolster, but at that height. And then move the knees over to the right. And I know they're not going to be formed exactly on top of each other because of your pelvis, but you'll add help to that. So you're going to add a sandbag to the outer left hip. And your work is on, kind of stacking the legs, and there's nothing between the knees, but your block is under them. So let's say I put my block up to the next height. It's just a little, for some reason, it's almost as if I know it's easier, but it catches my hip a bit, and like it keeps tension. So if you can take your sand so it's, it feels like it flows towards the knee. The left arm though opens. It depends on your shoulder how it will manage this motion. And your head rolls to the left, or you keep it in center, which feels better for my neck. So as your arms both open, whether they're a little low or they're right out to shoulder height, let the legs still feel like they're motioning to the right. Okay? And as you feel the circulation of breathing, we have this added benefit into our kind of the walls of the hip. And feeling that weight directly on the right side, right of your back, not just your hip. It's really that right side of the back that has more weight. Now, if your head is turned and you're really comfortable with that, hooray, it's not required. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like if your head doesn't turn this way, looking to your arm, then you don't push it. Not all are made the same. Not all circulation is the same for each body. But the one thing you probably can reinforce is this length of the waist. So before we get out of this side, I want you to just kind of notice from this, the rib channel, right? So from kind of navel center, spanning to this rib current on the side, you're trying to get that to stretch down towards this hip. Right, so if you lose your sand, it's fine. You're working on kind of eking out a little bit more. So if you put your hand on your sandbag, you're trying to push it downwards. Might be a little sensitive. Okay, so take a little caution here because the back pull, it's fairly progressive here. Okay, now slide the sand to your belly and bring your knees carefully in. That side has been pulled quite a bit of sensation, so be cautious how you push back to the middle. And the knees go to the left side, sand goes to the outer right. Okay, to the leg, to the hip, to the knee, we go. Okay, so reorganize yourself on this side. We're being particular about getting from one side to the next without a lot of in-between rock and roll, and we're just being very clean with the movement. So if your block is over on that side and you go, oh, I want it farther away, because your leg is longer than mine, I'm assuming. So you might need your block farther out. You also might decide to have it higher, and you might push it a little bit downwards because it's kind of a pleasant, well, it's sort of pleasant to have that sensation of stretch. Okay, so your head is centered. Yeah, what do you know? The second side of your head might turn easier, huh? It's probably true. These things happen. So, notice where your fluctuation is in your neck of direction and the unfolding process here. I think this is an interesting pathway today because we're going to go from this one into side sage with the left hip down, which is fairly connected to this shape, right? So I'm just trying to link things intelligent as we can, but you're kind of preparing, but now it's a little bit different than side sage, right? Because you feel across the hip. And the hip is going across, it's not pushing down to the quad stretch. It's in the back of the hip here. So enjoy it for a few more. Your left arm could be anywhere that you're feeling comfortable with it. Best be comfortable with your your parts. You're the one to monitor their movement. Okay, so, if you're trying to eke out a little bit more twist, see if you can find where you're not forcing your right arm quite so far. You're kind of bending through the arm. And then we'll take our right hand to the sand, and I want you in this one just to simply slide it over to the left, and then let the back muscles, continue to kind of lubricate and warm through. So my hand's going to go to my bolster, and I'm going to help myself back onto my back, and let my knees go a little bit side to side, not overstretching like all the way to the blocks, but just feel them work their muscles, moving the knees side to side. It's not knee muscle, right? It's not true, right? It's the upper pieces to the leg and the hip. Okay, and then take some care here where you feel the knees pull in, the hands at the back of the legs. All right. Okay, so we'll roll to our left. We'll slide down. Okay, this is where if you have two bolsters, you're going to get your other bolster. If you've got one, I'll show you how to use the one, which is kind of simple. The bolster would replace the blankets. You're either going to have two blankets and a bolster or two bolsters. So in side stage, here's the gist of it with this one. We know this. We have our ball under the leg if you use it, or a block. And you're going overhead with your hand towards a block or your hand on the side. If you're using the two bolsters, you'll take the round bolster, I'm assuming that you would have a round second one, but maybe you have a flat one. And you'll have your bolster here. If you have a round one, it's the one in the middle though. Okay, that's for certain. And then I have my bolster at the back. Now it's, for most of us, this bolster is pretty intense, right, for the breathing. So I add a ball to the inside of the right leg or a block. And then once I reach overhead, what you might add a blanket to this one, I suppose, because I know that's just too far down for me. And then as I take my sand to my side, yeah, I like using a bolster for this. I just don't take the time to do that often. So I'm losing out on this opportunity. So if you have a second bolster, I would just start adding that to this part of the class, even if I forget to mention it, just have an extra one. You don't have to go buy an extra one if you don't already have one. Okay, so feel that right arm reaching over, and let the waist lengthen. It might seem kind of different with a bolster, might not for those of us that have added it. I don't know. For me, it seems a little bit more steady with a higher bolster. Rib steady. Now, if there's anything that seems to be missing out of this shape right now, or it's too much, you can either remove that idea of the arm overhead that feels like it's pulling on the shoulder. Let the arm be besides you. Or you can let the arm open the ribs to the ceiling. I think what I find that when I have the bolster under my head, even though there's a blanket on top, I seem to stay on it versus rolling on the back of my head, which was kind of a habit I had, was to twist in my neck a bit. So this seems like the rib lift is quite supportive of my neck releasing. We'll see. Relax your eyes. Steady the breath. Feeling the ribs. Yeah, stay central here. Yeah, when you're with the side curl, it's like your left side of your waist has a little bit of a curling position here. So before we come out, I want you to make sure this right arm is happy. So if it, and it's overhead, it feels like it's pulling in the top of the arm. Get the arm down. You know, try to find a place where it's kind of releasing the shoulder. And it might not look anything like what I'm doing. You might have your arm over here and kind of look like you're about ready to take a nap. This seems very comfortable. Or you might have your arm behind your back. That's a great one for your shoulder, depending on how your shoulder's doing right now. You know, once we start to slide the sand away, you'll shift your right hand down besides your blanket or bolster. And when you come up, what I want you to do is take the belt, okay? So you're gonna sit in front of your props on the ground. You can have your bolster so you tip against it a little bit. So it's a reminder of sitting upright. Okay, and get your belt and let's take it. So it might still be buckled up, may not, but you need a loop. Okay. Okay. Belt loop behind you. Get ready for boat. And you'll take the belt so it reaches, hopefully not the buckle under your foot, but you reach it under your feet and you'll bring it high up onto well, it seems like it's back, but it's really high on the ribs, isn't it? If it was high on the back, it'd be on the other side of my blades, but it's high on the ribs. Have enough belt length so you could sit with your knees bent and you could breathe, so you can feel the security of the belt in your back, right? And you're trying to push back and then let the legs lift. So there's likely a little bit of inner attitude of challenge, disruption to get into the shape. It's really the easiest thing to get into, is it? I mean, you might pop up and feel like it's fine for 10 seconds and then something's not quite balanced. So thus comes the very much the improvisation for all of us on this one. So, you know, improvise what might work for you. So you might put your legs a little bit farther down and work with that core challenge in the back of the lower waistline. You might hold the belt. It seems really secure, but if your legs aren't high enough, you usually fall down from it. So you have to have a certain amount of lift with the legs to actually keep the balance. So give it one more try. You want to bend your knees so your feet come down. And then let's get the belt so it's closest to the balls of the feet, so it's higher up on the bottom. And maybe you make it a little tighter, that means it's harder, but you might want to make it looser. But see if you can get the lift of the feet and then maybe hold the belt. Try to spread the bottom of the foot, right? I know the inside of the big toes is crushing together, but try to feel that reach through the legs. I think you can. The back will have a nice little arch, nice span. Good. Yeah, so maintain the positioning of the lift. That's great. Yeah, and the elbows, keeping the bend of the arms so they're kind of tucked next to your sides, keeps the shoulder presence back. The second part, right, is the head tilts forward sometimes, so you have to feel your head move a little bit back. It's unlikely it's going to become unhinged, right? It's going to drop back. Most of us, we push a lot, we push forward so much with our neck muscles. Okay, now bending, strong bend of the knees, lower the feet. Did it. Take the belt off. Then go to your side sage. As I knock myself out with my belt. Turn to the right. Again, if you have your blankets, it's the same setup, second side. No different, except it's another hip. So weight bearing into the hip. Sneak the arm between the two props, whether it's the bolster or the blankets. Yeah, and you might like this type of roundness of the bolster. If you don't have one round bolster, you can use a flat one, but just put a blanket on top of it, like a tube, and that can enhance that. Yeah, I have mine pretty snug between here. My arm is right in the center, kind of tucked in. It feels good. So as I put that sand on, get the right leg so it's really close to your bolster. It's not on top of it for certain, it's on the floor, but you want to feel that the lower back muscles are kind of in, like it's stepping you towards a lunge. That is how the back interprets this position. Right, so you're getting this lower back ready as the left arm goes overhead. And if you don't feel as if this is appropriate with your arm reaching, don't do it. Yeah, it feels like it's a nice warming, but sometimes having the arm down, or having it down behind you is good too. Feel if that left arm is reaching over. How can you create equilibrium or equilibrium is what it would be. So if there's a lot of volume in your shoulder head and the left arm, then the focus is too much there. So if you feel then put that arm down and breathe. Now let your head relax. So I do notice if my head turns, it's just not a great position for my neck muscles. Still overall, that's not good. So try to let your head relax. If you're turning and flowing your ribs, that's different because you're flowing this whole muscular design. But for the most part, when you're lying on the props, let your head relax. Okay, breathing with the rib cage in motion for a few more cycles. Internalize. Okay, now this left thigh, we're going to kind of keep working our way into this quad a little bit, the left thigh. So as you move the sand aside, keep the focus kind of particular here. So as you come up, those of us with two bolsters have to redirect things for a moment. You're going to come up, you're going to put your bolster over, out of sight, out of mind. Okay, then get your other bolster. Those of us that have the other bolster to start, those will be easier. You're going to sit on it and come into pigeon. And I would just have, I think having your one blanket behind is probably better right now. But time will tell. So right knee out, left leg back, get that quad. If you want more under that knee, or you want to kind of move your blanket back, then that feels better with my blanket farther back from my knee. And just keep in mind, we're going to go one pigeon to the next. So whatever you set up with your blanket will be for the second side as well. But feel how this right leg kind of reaches over. Stay in your pigeon, but when you have your leg reaching over like that, it's these muscles, right? This whole span is stretching. It's not just your glute. So I want you to kind of notice what that bolster does underneath you is kind of separates and stretches things. So I think pigeon pose on a bolster is really smart, kind of for spanning those tissues, even though they feel like they still need more. right? They need more span. So hands on the floor or hands on blocks. If you've got a blanket kind of nearby, or let's say you got that other bolster, you can use that here under your arms. This is pretty good. I like that. It might be a little much arch for some of us, right? It kind of pushes the spine in. So if you want to lower down more, then you can go minus the bolster, but that gives us the option unless you put that out of sight, out of mind, huh? Okay, lowering down on something, floor, blanket, blocks. Okay, and feel if that left quad can extend so the front flesh is relaxing, and bend through the leg, left leg, and feel just when it bends, right? Just a little bit of bend goes right to for me, the right hip feels it. I feel it kind of bowing across to my hip. Hip bowing. Yeah, try to keep your waist in center. Doesn't need to go anywhere else. And now lower down to the back leg if it was bending. And then feel if you can kind of smoosh over to your right leg. So the spine is still aiming forward. Again, extending towards the crown of your head. Okay, and you're isolating in your hip. Okay, so when you walk your hands in and you change sides, like you're doing some break dancing here. So you're going to try to swing that left leg forward. And then when you hook the knee, then you take the right leg back. Okay. And then as you stretch it, if one of your knees has a little more bother to these positions, you want to, really address that and feel how you can support it. So some people find that the bolster's not enough. They feel difficulty and some pain. So if that is happening at all, this is one option. You don't want to keep the knee down, but you can always add a blanket, even if it's just a low, it's kind of, the blanket is slouched across your bolster. That sometimes feels better around a knee. It's quite lifted, right? It feels like it's pushed up, but some of us might find that's better on the knee too. So just keep that in mind. If it doesn't bother your knee, it just hasn't gotten to that point, then you don't have to do that, even if you're concerned, or if it doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt. But it might have a hurt of stretching, a deep stretch, if that's considered hurt. Okay, so get a feel of that range of motion into your hip. Feel the back thigh kind of just, it's kind of laying down, right? The quad is laying down. See what it's doing. If you decide to prompt it to more of a sensation, you can bend the back leg. But not required. If it feels like you want to go there. Even just a little bit of a hook of bending the knee is kind of nice. Just not much, just a little bit. Let's see, if you force the leg in further, you can just tell a small amount of movement adds sensation. And if I lower it back down all the way, I can kind of follow that release. So it's not self-massage per se, but if you do this kind of movement, cranking the leg, lifting, lowering, and you study that left hip, you can really feel how it shifts the blood flow into that area. When you don't have any other distractions, you can focus on these things. Now, where you feel the spine arching, breathing. Spine isn't breathing, but respiratory control. Great. Now come back All right, let's take our hands next to the left leg, toes under, right foot. Actually, yeah, I think you need toes under to do this. Feel how your body's tilted, okay, forward. And then push into your hands to bring yourself back to table. I think what I want us to do on this is to take the bolster to the side, and you'll need your two blankets. So what you'll do is you'll take this blanket, one of your blankets, so you turn it forward like you would with a bolster. You know, we've done this bolster this direction before, but it'll make it a little different challenge. And my blanket behind under my knees is a little distance away. So I suppose it's like the short end of my, the block on its shortest, right, would be that, about perfectly about that. So put your blocks to the front sides of your mat, okay? And then as your hands are down besides your bolster, your blanket, because we're changing it up, so now you gotta figure out where our props are here. Now, feel the spine rounding. Push into your hands, move your spine back and around, as if you had like a big beach ball here, and you were kind of hanging out over the beach ball, just dropping your head down and just releasing your back. Now, if you look back at your toes, they might be kind of turned in. They might have their own features, but if you can relax your toes, you might have to move your knees up on the blanket a bit so it's easy for your shins, but relax your toes and your nose. And then alternate cat-cow. So arch the spine, followed by rounding, shin to chest. Inhale, arch. Exhale, rounding. So feel that you're moving in the torso. Yeah, let the hips move. Let the hips do the movement. The pelvis is motioning. Okay, last time you round, you're gonna push a little bit back. And then we'll come forward and we'll lengthen the torso. Okay, not perfectly lined up. It's okay. I'm gonna move so I'm not hitting the wall, but I like to have this little space between, because otherwise I'm too reliant on the blanket. So you want to keep the awareness of your hips completely reaching forward to your torso. So you're lengthening your torso like you would in Sphinx pose. It is Sphinx pose. So lengthen the front line of the torso, like kind of visualize navel center and then straight up towards the space of your heart. Okay, there's an arch through the spine, holding the neck up. Okay, now lower your head so you feel like you're kind of tilting down. Slide the hands back so the elbows are by your sides. I think of this as grasshopper. Elbows by the sides, hands spread open, and rest your feet here. Okay, so the strength is in the middle of your back. Breathe. You're not pushing to try to get up, but you're just simply strengthening spine. Belly moves with the breath. Doesn't look like much is occurring. And then as your hands slide back forward, elbows down, Sphinx, arch. I don't know about you, but this arch feels easier for my back than the other one, the previous moment. This is a little more satisfying for my back muscles. I feel it calmer. Okay, now feel how you might be able to get out of this without crunching up your shoulders. So I want you to feel that you can bring the hands out a little wider on your mat, so to the edges. Push to lift up, so your hands push. Try to keep your palms a little bit open. They may not stay entirely fingers out, but do the best you can, pushing. Okay, that's a lot more into the back. And then as you approach lowering your ribs down, slide your hands back and then toes under, help yourself up. And then I want you to scoot your knees towards the front of that blanket. Pull a blanket over on the left in front of your left knee. And let's take it so that this blanket you have, you're gonna take it, fold it in half, place it back next to your left knee, and then step the right foot forward and take a couple blocks under your, well, one under each hand, not two under each hand. Oh, that would be delightful. And then work on that lunge. Okay, so my blocks, I'm gonna put them in very close to this, besides me, so they're under my shoulders. So it's a peak sensation for my quad. Yeah, I like this version. The blanket almost feels like it's just not enough, like I need more blankets. So if that's approaching your experience, you might try to scoot your right foot farther forward. So that means you enhance lowering down into the blanket. Yeah, it all might be a lot to just experience. You know, the blocks are semi-supportive. You have to still use all your muscles to hold up. We'll be at the wall on our back very soon. So try to maintain a little bit of strength here into your back muscles. Use it or lose it, huh? You can feel the chain of events here. So when we move forward, what I think would be helpful for us to do, so we have something in between the shapes, mixtures of movement. So very opposite. So we're going to do a counter pose. We're going to come back to center. And if you can, you'll take your blocks forward under your hands. I would just move the blanket out so that you don't trip over it. Toes under left foot, step it forward besides the right foot. Take a counter pose, so a forward bend. This is what we do, a counter pose. So blocks can go away, or you can have your hands on them as well if that's better for your back. And then feel how the balls of the feet press and the sitting bones lift and your head lowers down. Nod your head side to side, hold your elbows. Really feeling that spine separation, stretching in the back. Okay, visualize that low piece of your spine into the sacrum, feeling a little bit of openness. Take a few more breaths here. If you have your arms crisscrossed, take it to the other crossing. Get some balance through the blades. Shoulder blade bowing. Yeah, finally, before you get out, make sure that your neck is stretching just as well. Maybe nodding it just a tiny bit, but feel the release of the weight of the head. Lower down the hands on blocks. Slide them in besides your feet. Make sure they're on your sticky mat, right, so they don't suddenly slip out from you. And then as your feet scoot in towards each other, you'll take a moment where your back is a little bit of lifting, a little bit of arching. So more of a cow spine motion, okay? Then step that right foot back, lower down. If you want to stay with a little bit of a mid-height lunge, you might enjoy it. Might kind of feel good. Actually, this feels kind of good on the legs, huh? Well, we know we need to stretch that quad. So let's bring the right foot forward, the left foot back with this mid lunge, so we at least get a little bit of high lunging in, as it feels downright sturdy in the leg muscles to incorporate. Add some good stuff in randomly. Okay, now feel how the back heel is reaching. The heel is not on the floor. Well, maybe yours is, but mine's still reaching back. So the ball of my foot, stretching into the calf. Step the left foot forward, and then we'll get back to that right leg. So reach back through the right knee down. And if you don't tolerate knee on the blanket, then you don't tolerate it. So maybe your leg is up and you're kind of holding space for getting that blanket under that quad and then stretching forward. Right. I have my blocks in pretty close and they arch through the spine. You work on, a lift of the back situation. And it's a pretty challenged back world and front world above our pelvis to try to get that support. And so if you need to stuff your blanket in more, you could. I don't know if it's going to do a world of good to get more blanket there, though, to get another one. I think one is probably going to do all it can to bring you padding. And then if your right foot wants to relax the toes, go for it. Just let it go. This is not an easy sensation to endure. Endurance. Endurance. Okay. You got ants in your pants to get out of it, probably, huh? Okay, so when you feel that quad length, I know it can always get more stretch. It's never quite enough. So we're going to kind of move our way towards our wall space, and that'll be really individualized here, how you'll get there. So I'm still interested in this quad. So when I come out, since I'm close, very close to my wall space, I'm just going to put my blocks to the side and slide forward, take my left foot back, and take a moment with my hips back, not on my feet though, not trying to launch to child's pose, but feel that movement back. Head down. Okay, and then crawl your way to your wall space. And I want you to take up positioning. So you've got the props that you'll need. Your ingredients are blankets, bolster block. If you have a ball, bring it. I think we'll use this or a block in the beginning. So if you have a ball, have it with you now. And the only thing you really don't need is your belt. That's not going to be useful. Okay, other things, sand and all those are good. So find a wall space, sit next to it with your back on the ground and your feet to the wall. Yeah, we've been here before, I know. So you'll place the ball or a block, either way. If you're using a block, you might kind of notice the measurement of it would be a good one to have it in the medium setting, mid setting, if you're using a block. But have them nearby because you'll use the blocks even if you just have a ball right now. They'll be coming in soon. So we got something between the knees, and take a feel of the hands to the thighs and the quads. Even if you roughed them up a little bit, they probably are still going to get back to their, central shape of holding, because they hold you up. They're nice shields for us to walk. So you want to have some sturdiness there, but right now we're trying to loosen up those shields. So when you push into your feet, again, you're getting sturdy in the legs, right? That pushes and puts muscle there. And this is a place you want to have really strong and good density, right? Femur, right? This neck of the femur, that's a big piece of study, right? For density. So when you get the hips to lift, I want you to feel that you push into the wall. Huge piece of using the wall right now is for our strength. So bring your arms overhead. If that hurts you, then have them down by your sides. Don't need to do that if it doesn't work. But you choose. But when you lift and you lower, no matter what your arms are doing, You want to be close enough for you to the wall that you feel like you can actually get a lift, right? So if you feel you push up and there's a little bit of drag, then guess what? You got to get closer. So you probably can work with this one for a few moments before you establish how close you need to be to the wall to feel that you can push from the wall to massage through the spine. I don't need my arms to go overhead, but I sometimes like to have arms down by the side so I can just concentrate on the spine concentration, lifting and lowering. Feel that healthy development, especially when you get down to completely sacrum on the ground. Find that position when you're resting on the sacrum, but you're not arching in that space. Now I know that part of your body arches, that's where you get your arch in your lumbar. But I want you to just take care as if you're trying to flatten that space right now. So if you have a ball, or even if you have a block, your emphasis is to squeeze into it. And you just keep the squeeze going. So emphasize also that if you were to kind of slide your shoulders a little bit back, again, you're trying to lengthen your back, like just flatten this down right now. Make an imprint into your mat. If your knees can't squeeze in, they just start to get a little tired. They forget to move in. Then remind and go back to squeezing. Okay, if your arms are overhead, they come down by the sides. Take a few moments. Try to keep the feet at the wall. Once you release that squeeze, notice the subtleties in the sacrum. And then remove the ball. And let's take a block. And I want you to place it so that it's just besides. In fact, let's go for 2 today. If you have to go with 1, you start with 1, then you add another if it feels like you can. So we'll all be working to help ourselves out. But place it beside your hip, and then bring your hands to your rib cage and notice if there is a bit of a lift with your inhale in the ribs, like you're pulling. Okay, so the opposite is what we're trying to do. Keep having your remind ourselves, belly breathing, belly breathing. So your focus is abdomen expands and then centers back to spine. Naturally that you might feel like you push into your hands here, but try to get back to that belly breathing. Okay, so now push into the wall. If your feet push and that feels nice on your back, you work with that. Push firm and push before you can actually hook your tailbone under and lift. Really push so you can get that pressure and sensation in your back to decompress the back. So you feel like you have kind of your tail under, but you're not completely lifting your hips up now. So you have your tail under. Okay, now lift up the hips and slide a block. Got too many blocks around me. So it's flat, and then just feel when your spine rests back down, your pelvis, your tailbone rests on the block. Is that enough? Okay, maybe you want more. So push and lift the hips up. Now you've got to walk your feet up the wall a little bit, noticing that that's not going to get you that much higher, but it does help to progress. And then bring those blocks so they're just at the lumbar. They're not on the ribs, under the ribs. And then once you're there, you can maybe move this blanket out. It feels much better in my neck. Okay, and then the feet can come down to the ground, right next to the wall. Toes can stretch a little bit up. Now roll the shoulders a little bit in towards the spine. They go down and in. And if you notice the tailbone is pushing down, it feels maybe awkward. You might work with putting your feet back at the wall. Just be careful, your shoulders have to slide out to do that. And then if you need your blanket again under your head, if it's not comfortable with that one, use one. But get a feel of the tail stretching. And then the reason sometimes the tail pushes down onto the block is that you're not lifting up the ribs enough. So you're trying to expand your rib cage to help your whole spinal column. Okay, so shoulders move in towards the spine. Yeah, that worked out better for me. My tailbone was pushing into my blocks, and it was probably denting them. So if you're not complete with this, you can have your block lower. You can also stay with your feet at the wall the whole time, on top, on the wall, not on the ground. So spend a few moments here centering. It will push the circulation into your respiratory tree, your sinuses, your bronchial tubes. You'll feel a little different with your breath. You'll sound different. It's all part of the flushing game here. Yeah, use a blanket if it feels right for you. Yeah, your feet can be up, they can be down. You decide in the sensation. Now, once you're held in the shape, keep in mind props support circulation, right? So we're trying to use our props to support the body's shape. And the shape improves circulation. So the stillness is important as well, just letting the shape be. And then it doesn't take much time till you feel it stimulates a lot. So you might put your feet back up at the wall. Feel that you step into them. And then as you push into the wall, even just 20% is enough. Push and see if you can just lift a little bit. Slide the block out, then lift a little bit more. And maybe you can just get your spine to go down. Spine down. Okay, once that spine is centered, you'll put the left foot across that left ankle to the right knee. And I want you just to get a feel here that you're pushing. Now, this is door one. This is the option, first one. We're going to do our crossover from this angle. So with our feet close to the wall today. So you can be here. I would put your blanket under your head by now. And then you'll use that as a link. So you'll cross the left leg over the right. Knees will go to the right. So maybe the holster's not going to work for everybody on this one. So you can put sand on the outer left thigh. You can stretch your left arm open. Feels fine for me without sand right now. Don't need the disruption with the position and pressure, but you can hook onto your outer left leg with your right hand as well. Get that nice, complete release counter pose from bridge pose. Closing the eyes. Final few poses, so really set your internal experience of connection from spine to hip. And now feel that we've done quite a few of these specific isolated motions today. So when you roll back in center, left foot to the wall, right foot to the left knee, try to establish the sacrum landing. So it's not twisted, you're really flat back on it. And this right knee doesn't have to be pushing forward. You might go, oh no, this feels kind of nice, it kind of hooks. My sacrum is centered. Go with what seems intuitively right with your knee. If it feels right to move it forward, if it feels better to just swing with it. And then let the left foot come down, cross the right leg over. It's already over, right? It just kept going. And then knees to the left and the right arm is open. Roll your head to the right. Yeah, if you've followed the sequence, you've done a good job of kind of getting the directional pathways right through the spine, the hip. Gotta be doing something good. Feel the ribs in that rotation. Breathing slow. take care that when you move back in center, you'll hug your knees to your chest, roll to the side, and then take your bolster to the wall space. So I want you to move. If you have a round bolster, that's sometimes taught too. Of course, everything's probably taught, but I find that can be really helpful. It's a little intense, but you can play with that if you have one of those bigger round ones. I'm gonna go flat because my back feels like it's been moved around a bit, so I want to keep it very sane for my spine. But when you sit up on the bolster, you're gonna push your tush to the wall like you're putting your sitting bones at the wall. This should feel pretty awkward. Awkward is key. And then swing the legs up and let the spine center. So even though my hips are up on the bolster, it's, if you were to turn this the other direction, right, it's quite a liberating spine. Spine liberation, here we go. All right, take a sandbag to the feet and let your legs rest against the wall. Come into your final rest here, even though it's a little bit of an energetic rest, isn't it? If you want to put a blanket over you, if you feel that your hips are centered down. All right, leg liberation, spine liberation, here we go. Yeah, I like to feel like my hip bones are kind of almost like I wag my tail right or wag my tail a little bit left, and then I center it. That feels pretty good. Blanket could be across. You could also have your blanket so it's turned straight back and kind of pull it in, do a little bit of a neck roll. You can do that. You can stretch your hands back to reach for your blanket. There's so many multiple ideas with this moment, but you decide. If you want to flow with your arms back, go with it. If you're happy with them in your lap or your belly, that zone could be soothing as well. And illuminate the emphasis of the exhalation and the flow of the diaphragm when it motions towards the heart, the exhale. So let that peace generate internally. If the sand on the feet is too much, you can always do this without. Notice that the in and out breath is likely to be on a path of kind of seamlessness when you're upside down. There's not a real power play with the breath. Now, feel when you bend your legs that the sand kind of increases that momentum, right? It's pressure. So you have to find a decision in movement where you move the feet away from the wall, just the right moment. You might still feel the weight into your hips. So use that wisely, that weight wisely to strengthen the legs. Sand on feet is great, right? So bend through the legs towards ribs, move the sand away. Yeah, if you need to stay here all the way to the end, till you click off the class, you could stay here if you prefer, a little longer. or come around with the knees bending. Whenever that moment happens to be for you, if it does. And then I'll roll over to the side and sit next to the wall. So take the moments here just in, maybe this is the last moment of kind of true stillness in your bones for a bit. But just feeling where the back rests towards the wall. And let your chin rest gently towards your chest. Keep the spine lifted, the shoulders back, hands up to the heart. Just take a moment of inner silence, sending support out to others. Peace. Inhale together. And exhale, bowing.